My grandmother died on a Tuesday in October, and by Friday I was already standing in her attic with a flashlight, sneezing from 40 years of dust. I thought I knew everything about her. Sunday dinners, the way she hummed while she cooked, the way she never once, in 26 years, talked about her life before she married my grandfather. I didn't know why until I found the box. It was pushed into the far corner under a stack of old curtains, a plain wooden crate with a rusted clasp. My grandmother's name wasn't on it. A different name was burned into the lid, faded but readable: Sandra Whitlow. I had never heard that name in my life. Inside, wrapped in a moth-eaten scarf, sat a stack of newspaper clippings, a spiral notebook with a cracked leather cover, and a man's Letterman jacket. The jacket was navy blue, the leather sleeves stiff with age. Sewn above the pocket was a name patch that read Declan. The front of the jacket was covered in dark, rust-colored stains that had soaked deep into the fabric. I sat down right there on the attic floor and started reading. The first clipping was from the Mill Hollow Gazette, dated January 2nd, 1999. The headline was small, tucked on page 4. Fire at Lakeside Lodge claims 7 lives. According to the article, a New Year's Eve party at the old ski lodge outside town had ended in tragedy when a fire broke out around midnight. Investigators blamed a faulty propane heater. 7 teenagers died. 2 survived with severe injuries. I grew up 30 minutes from Mill Hollow. My mother grew up there. Nobody in my family had ever mentioned a fire that killed 7 kids. The next clipping, dated a week later, was buried even deeper in the paper. It mentioned that one of the survivors, a 17-year-old named Sandra Whitlow, had been released from the hospital and had since left town to stay with relatives. There was no follow-up story, no anniversary piece, no memorial. It was like the town had decided the whole thing would be easier to forget than to grieve. I opened the notebook. The handwriting inside was small and careful, clearly a teenager's, and the first entry was dated December 1998. I recognized it almost immediately. It was my grandmother's handwriting, the same slanted letters I'd seen on birthday cards my whole life. Except the name at the top of the first page wasn't Grandma, it was Sandy. I kept reading. The early pages were ordinary. Complaints about homework, a boy named Declan she liked, her best friend, Renee, who she said knew her better than anyone alive, plans for a New Year's Eve party at the lodge where Declan's family worked as caretakers. Nothing in those pages hinted at anything except a normal 17-year-old's life in a small lake town. Then, 3 entries before the fire, something shifted. She wrote that she'd gone to surprise Declan at the lodge 2 days early while he was doing maintenance before the party. She wrote that she found him with Renee, not talking, not innocent. She described it in 1 line and never mentioned it again in the following pages, like she couldn't bring herself to write the details twice. The entry after that was short. I'm still going to the party. Nobody will know anything is wrong. I'm good at that. I sat in that attic for a long time before I turned the next page. The final entry was dated December 31st, written in handwriting so rushed it barely looked like hers. She wrote that everyone had gathered in the lodge's main room around 11:30, that the older kids were drinking, that Declan and Renee were dancing near the fireplace like nothing had happened between them. She wrote that the lodge had 1 main door and that she knew exactly which propane line ran under the floorboards near the fireplace because Declan had shown her himself only weeks earlier, bragging about how he could fix anything in that building. The entry ended mid-sentence. I had to put the notebook down. My hands were shaking. I told myself there had to be another explanation. Maybe she witnessed something and never wrote about it. Maybe the notebook belonged to someone else entirely, and she'd simply kept it, the way people keep strange things after a tragedy. I wanted there to be another explanation, because the woman who raised me spent every Christmas morning making cinnamon rolls before anyone else woke up. She cried during sad movies. She was, as far as I knew, the gentlest person I had ever met. I went back to the box and found one more folded piece of paper at the bottom, tucked behind the lining. It was a letter, unsent, addressed to no one. The handwriting matched the notebook. She wrote that she never meant for it to go the way it did. She wrote that she only meant to scare them, to make them smell gas and panic and run outside so she could watch them shiver in the cold the way she'd been shivering inside for 2 days. She wrote that she lit a match near the door to check the smell, the way Declan had shown her, and that the fire moved faster than she understood fire could move. She wrote that by the time she pulled the door open again, it was already too late for most of the people inside. She wrote that Declan and Renee never made it out. She wrote that she told the paramedics she'd been by the door the whole time, trying to help people escape, and that everyone believed her because nobody wanted to imagine a 17-year-old girl capable of what actually happened. She wrote that the town wanted answers that made sense, so they took the faulty heater theory and never looked back. She wrote that she changed her name 2 years later when her family moved states, married a man who never asked about her childhood, and spent the rest of her life trying to become someone who deserved a family. The letter ended there. No signature. I sat in that attic until it got dark outside, the flashlight beam growing dimmer against the box in my lap. My mother was born in October of 1999, 10 months after the fire. I called her the next morning and asked, as casually as I could manage, if Grandma had ever mentioned a lodge fire from when she was a teenager. My mother went quiet for a second too long before she said no. Not that she could remember. Why did I ask? I told her I found some old newspaper clippings in the attic and left it at that. I haven't shown her the notebook. I don't know if I ever will. A week later, I drove out to Mill Hollow myself. The lodge is gone now, torn down sometime in the early 2000s, replaced by a gravel lot that the town uses for overflow parking during the summer festival. I stood there for a while, trying to picture 7 teenagers dancing near a fireplace, having no idea how the night was going to end. I found the old cemetery on the north side of town and located 2 graves near each other under a maple tree. Declan Marsh, 1981 to 1998. Renee Ashford, 1982 to 1998. Someone had left fresh flowers at both, which surprised me until I asked around and learned that a woman still tends both graves every spring. Nobody in town seems to know her name. She's elderly now, keeps to herself, and has been doing it for as long as anyone can remember. I think about that woman more than I probably should. I still have the box. I haven't decided what to do with the letter, or the notebook, or the jacket that's stiff with someone else's blood. Some nights, I think I should burn all of it and let the last honest version of my grandmother be the one who made cinnamon rolls on Christmas morning. Other nights, I think the 7 families who buried their kids in 1999 deserve to know what actually happened to them. Even 25 years too late. I haven't made up my mind yet, but every time I close my eyes, I hear her voice from all those Sunday dinners, calm and warm, telling me that the secret to a good life was simple. Never let anyone see you shake. Now I understand exactly what she meant. If a story like this stays with you long after it ends, that's usually a sign it's worth sharing. Let me know in the comments comments what you think really happened to that woman by the maple tree.